It's not about knowing lots of little facts about a broad area. It's about being able to find a passion about something and dig into it and peel the layers back and understand it more and more.
What I love about Mr. Muse's class is that students are actively engaged in their own learning, meaning that they are either making something, playing with something, or testing something that is causing them to think more deeply about the world and how it works. And he does this in an incredibly creative and fun way. For example, one day I came to observe in his class only to find that all the lights were off except for one bright shining light in the front of the room, with candles on each lab table. There was some eerie, syncopated music in the background, and Mr. Muse was sitting at the head of the class waiting for students to take their seats. Students were bringing in the musical instruments that they had been building and testing for the last few weeks, and were to play them for the rest of the class, eventually to form a group and play a song together in perfect harmony.
When you come up to perform, please introduce yourself with your stage name.
The students loved this. It was very different from most classes, and they obviously enjoyed the atmosphere and fun which Mr. Muse created through his ingenuity of mimicking a small, dark, candlelit Seattle music establishment. While in truth, most of the instruments were not exceptional, there were many quickly built pan pipes and guitars made out of cookie tins and even a large broomstick tub bass. Some of the students had gone out of their way to really impress their class.
All right, this is Blauini in the house.
Yes, perhaps a bit corny, but we were all blown away. After many more instruments, this student followed by playing a fairly sophisticated wooden guitar that he himself had built from scratch. To me, this event in many ways exemplified what Mr. Muse is able to do with his students. Make them build, create, or look at something in such a way that they are able to develop a new way of looking at and thinking about the physical world.
Typically, when I plan a unit or it's around an idea and it's around a project at this point, and then all the lab activities and the day-to-day activities that lead up to that feed into that and inform that in some way for students. Right now, with the musical instrument project, students have been working on a series of labs where they are using electronic measuring equipment and recording sounds, and then they can actually see the wave and calculate its frequency. Different groups in the class on a particular day will work on one of those or another, and over a 2-week period they'll rotate through most of those activities. So it's really a 3-ring circus kind of leading up to the musical instrument itself.
The point here is invaluable. While Mr. Muse's students have come to appreciate him for engaging them in some wild and woolly projects, I came to learn that his projects went far beyond simply having students make or do something fun, like building a musical instrument or telescope or rocket. Mr. Muse, over several years, has taken each of his projects and has added to and or revised them so that his students are not only making something fun, but engaging in a number of additional activities to ensure that they are truly learning what Mr. Muse wants them to learn about physics.
Fire in the hole.
The trebuchet is probably his most popular and well-liked project of the year.
Trebuchet is a medieval siege engine. It's a gravity-powered weapon, and this is a big counterweight falling, and it turns an arm and throws, well, in medieval times, dead horses or prisoners with bubonic plague. It is undoubtedly very important in the history of physics because here you have a machine that a lot of variables at work, and to understand it and to make it work, you have to understand energy and ballistics and even time and acceleration and motion and angular momentum, all these physics ideas. So students build this, but they don't build it just as a one-off thing. We really spend about 2 months developing it. We do computer modeling and build small ones and large ones and do reading. And through that whole time, we're tying it into the standard physics curriculum that other students are getting.
So what we got to do is lift up the mighty weight.
It's become very important to me to maintain my enthusiasm for teaching, to do new things or to tackle things that are extensive. And you know, after almost 10 years, there's a lot of layers to the project, and I've learned lots of ways that it fits in to lots of other things that I want to teach.
Oh yeah.
This is what I learned from Muse, that apart from his doing extremely creative things in the classroom, like having students build pinhole cameras and actually taking pictures around campus, or wiring miniature houses, or figuring out a way to bounce a laser through a maze of mirrors, his students were always engaged in a variety of smaller activities within each single big project. These activities were in fact carefully designed to help students truly understand what it is they were working with, what the big ideas in physics are, and perhaps most importantly, what those ideas look like in the real world. To do this, to build what I shall call the rigor into his projects, not just creating fun toys or making fun objects, but the rigor in constructing a project which both fully engages the student as well as gets them to think more deeply about the physics involved, Mr. Muse incorporates a number of additional components. Often there are several activities or steps to a project which engages every student in some way to think more critically and analytically about the phenomenon or enterprise at hand. Simple? No. As Mr. Muse says, it can often take him years before a project gets to the point of elaboration or sufficient sophistication that he feels fully engages the students in thinking through the physics involved.
My sense of a good project, and not every project that I put in front of kids would meet this criteria, is that it's got a lot of steps that help students to understand what the project is about and help them to build a successful one, even if they're coming from a place of knowledge that doesn't really tell them very much about what they're going to do or how to do it. So there's a lot of layers. It's kind of like an onion. It does take a long time to evolve.
Once I walked into his classroom and he had simply placed a large pile of interesting objects on each table. A plastic wand, a fur pelt, some styrofoam, aluminum plates, etc. Not unusual for a physics class. However, at the front of the class was a large metal sphere from which danced several loose pieces of string. Without calling any direct attention to it, I was amazed when students started to walk into class and simply begin to play with it, making the strings dance about in the air by waving their hands back and forth and teasing the strings in some way so as not to get shocked. To me, this was a highlight. It made me giddy to see kids walk into a class and just begin to play, puzzle, and wonder about something, trying to figure it out and make sense of it for themselves.
Even with a small project like the objet d'art or the clock at the beginning of the year, I have students at least write a paper explaining, drawing their project, drawing other students' projects, analyzing the good points and the bad points. I always like to include a section, have them include a section on who they blame for their misfortune and struggles, because that makes it interesting and fun to read. And, you can get them to go off a little bit in a humorous way.